Rather there in Washington. Well, it's time now for a closer look at another story in today's news. That's in Top Story. And today we're off to Tunisia, where the ruling Islamist party, Ennahda, says the country's new post-revolution constitution won't mention Islamic law as the main source of legislation. It's a significant shift, seemingly sidelining hardline conservatives who've been demanding an Islamic state. Instead, a drafting committee will preserve the language in Tunisia's current constitution that refers to Islam as the state's religion and Arabic as its language. Well, that's the subject of today's Top Story, and for that I'm joined by our International Affairs Editor, Annette Young. Annette, thank you for joining us. Now, this does seem a positive step for people who were perhaps worried about the rise of Islamic hardliners, but has Ennahda been making a successful transition from opposition to government?
Well, Lorna, it's very much early days yet, but one thing to keep in mind, it's all well and good, and this applies to any democracy around the world, it's all well and good when you're out in the opposition. It's a very different thing when you're actually running the country. The thing about political parties such as Ennahda, and also its equivalent in Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood, is that they have been out in the political cold for a very long time, which means that they are, by and large, astute political players. But we'll come back to Egypt in a moment, because there's obviously a different story unfolding there. In terms of Tunisia, certainly Ennahda is doing what it can to evolve to become a more liberal, more accommodating type government. And the fact that they rule in coalition with other parties obviously is an important element in all of this. Now, by rejecting a mention of Islamic law in the Constitution, it clearly is making good on its promise to preserve the secular nature of Tunisia. And this is the thing about Tunisia, by contrast to, say, Egypt and other countries in the region, is that it's very much known and very proudly known for its secular society as such. And it's also what Ennahda has done is sort of distance itself from the ultra-conservatives, the Salafis. Now, they, in turn, have not been at all happy with all this. For instance, there was a rally on Sunday where several thousand, in fact up to 8,000 people gathered in protest at the move by the government not to include Islamic law in the constitution. But there are also equally secular activists who are somewhat concerned that maybe Ennahda is not doing enough to stand up to the Salafists. They also are waiting to see whether Ennahda will abide by other promises, such as refusing to ban alcohol as such, as in not going ahead with that ban. And I mean, it is a very difficult path that they're treading, because it's, you know, that fine line between keeping in mind that it is an Islamic country as such, but also taking into account the concerns of its secular partners in government.
OK, and let's move to Egypt now, as promised. The transition for the Muslim Brotherhood there hasn't been very smooth, has it?
No, it hasn't. It's completely, by contrast, a very different story. I mean, basically what the Muslim Brotherhood has done is angered leftists, liberals and other groups by over its handling of the country's constitution. Effectively what they did is they filled a panel with Islamists. This is a panel that was always going to be tasked with drafting the new constitution. And the other big concern is the fact that it's going to possibly break off one of its promises, which is it might consider running a candidate for presidency, which is something that they said at the beginning they wouldn't do. We do know that at the moment there's a bit of a standoff on this issue between the Muslim Brotherhood and other politicians, and there's certainly a standoff between the military rulers and the Muslim Brotherhood over this issue. According to officials within the party, they've delayed the decision for the moment. But the lack of decision yesterday highlights again the growing divisions within the group over this issue. It's a very thorny issue indeed, and it again shows the difficulty of an Islamist party on, you know, trying to ensure that you can still rule the country but at the same time keep everybody happy.
OK, Annette Young, thank you very much indeed for joining us. And you can follow Annette on Twitter on @AnnetteF24. Well, let's get a reminder now of our top stories here on Live from Paris this half hour.